Good morning, this is Stephanie from Crochetverse. My Facebook page is linked in the description. The purpose of my video today is to show you a very informal verbal description of how I altered my blank canvas onesie to create the E.T. costume. This costume I created last Halloween, and he was created completely freehanded, just by looking at pictures of E.T. from the movie and then having to go at it. I was blessed that he became fairly viral. I've learned that E.T. in general creates a pretty guttural response. When the movie came out, you either absolutely loved him or you were deathly terrified of him. And so I think that's why he caught a lot of people's attention. I was one of the people who loved him. I would dream that I would have my own alien show up at my house, and, you know, I cried at the end of the movie, etc., etc. So in any case, what I did for him was freehanded. After he became super popular, I had a ton of people asking me, how did I do him? And I really couldn't tell that person because I freehanded him. So what I did is create what I call the blank canvas onesie. This is a very thoroughly written line-by-line crochet pattern that includes 11 sizes from 0 to 3 months all the way to men's X large to create a onesie that in essence, as it's named, is a blank canvas. It will create a big onesie that has no embellishments, and you from there can alter it to create any character you like, and in this case, E.T. As most Halloween costumes are made, I created the onesie to have no openings on the front. I wanted to keep it like a free canvas with no obstructions to add or embellish in any way that you wanted. For the pattern, you have an opening in the rear that comes from the head all the way down to the bottom of the butt. You would step in the costume from the rear and pull it up over your shoulders, kind of like almost any Halloween costume that you see that's a full body. You could, as shown in the pattern, add a zipper, and you could also do buttons, or you could even just create some ties and tie that opening shut when the person wears it. It's created double-stranded worsted weight yarn. This particular costume, E.T. here, is created in Red Heart Super Saver in Cafe Latte. That is the main color of his body, and the one that I found that kind of mimicked the appearance of his skin color the best. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is first show you the changes that I made. And then I'm going to give you kind of a visual of how to do it. If you want to try this on your own, I'm going to say that you probably need to be about an intermediate level crocheter. Maybe somebody who's got a couple of clothing projects under your belt, whether they're freehanded or by pattern, so you kind of have an idea of how crochet clothing is created. I wouldn't start this out as a beginner project, but definitely through some trial and error you could probably achieve it. The blank canvas onesie is this. Here is one that I created that has completely no embellishments whatsoever, and what you can create using the pattern as written, again, link to purchase that is going to be in the description. Here it is. Okay, this is a 2T, 4T here. Okay, you can see top to bottom, one piece, hood pulls over the front, nice large face opening. This one I actually went ahead and added a zipper to. The opening come from here to here, but since my son didn't need that much room, I seamed up about that much, and then just the zipper goes in. Okay, so this is what your pattern's going to create, and then with some changes, you can change it to that. Again, I am not a videographer, but I figured just due to the demand, you would probably rather have the information and a semi sort of okay video production than no information at all. So the first thing that I'm going to address is the embellishments that are done on the chest area. Okay, those are all done once the costume is completed. As a matter of fact, most of them are. The first thing I should mention is the main pattern. You are going to be working in both loops of the crochet stitch. This is your normal crocheting method. When you work the stitch, you insert your hook under both loops, and that is standard operating procedure. Well, E.T. is super wrinkly. He's really textured, saggy, droopy, leathery. So to mimic that, instead of working through both loops, I worked into only the back loop or the front loop. The costume is created by turning your work between the rounds and the rows. You don't just keep going in one spiral so you have only a right side and only a wrong side of the work. The pattern is turned back and forth. So when you are working from the right side of the work, you're going to work in the back loop, and that's going to leave a ridge on the front. Then when you turn it around and you're working from the back side on the row, you're going to work it in the front loop, and that's going to leave a ridge on the front too. So the goal here is from the right side of the work in the back loop, and from the wrong side of the work in the front loop, and that's going to give you all these ridges on the whole pattern. You're going to want to work the hood, the body, the sleeves, and the legs like that. The more texture we can get in him, the better. Okay, so to start, I'm going to address these parts here. You'll create the entire onesie completely as written for the person that you are creating it for, working in the loops as I just described. These lines here, the first is a pectoral muscle enhancement, if you will. This, and this here is all done in a technique called surface crochet. If you're not familiar with that, it's super easy, but if you need to understand how it's done, look up a YouTube video on surface crochet, and then you can come back and apply that knowledge to this. I worked this also double strand, also with an end hook. But to add dimension, I did one color of the body and then I added in a darker brown. That way it added some visual depth and dimension to the surface crochet. But in essence, with surface crochet, holding the yarn double strand, also with the 9mm hook, you're going to join in between the spaces of the stitches. And then you just insert your hook in whatever spot on the piece that you would need to direct those surface crochet stitches to the proper location that you want. For example, on this, I started by joining up here, and then I just slip stitched, and you're going to want to work loosely, because if you work too tightly, you're going to like bind or pucker the work, and you don't want that. So I started up here, and then I surface crocheted into a pectoral muscle enhancement. Then another one joining here, and we're going to come across the center of the body. These stop at the sides. They don't go around the entire pattern. The last one is to enhance the bottom of the rib cage. Again, surface crochet, joining like this, okay? So this, and this one down here, his tummy kind of like droops over his legs. So to mimic that like droopy tummy appearance, we did one more down here. So this line, this line, this line, and this line are done in surface crochet once the onesie is completed, using one strand of the body color and one darker color, slip stitching loosely in a surface crochet method. Okay, on E.T., his tummy kind of has a circular appearance. It's pretty wrinkly and pretty droopy. So to create that, this is completed after the onesie is done as well. This is a crochet spiral, and that is worked in the back loop only. So if you need to YouTube a video on that, you're going to want to YouTube crocheting in a spiral. In short, you're going to start out with a magic ring or a chain 2. I prefer the magic ring, but I know some people get a little bit afraid of that, although I highly recommend you try it. So I'm working in the back loop only, double stranded in a spiral. And this piece here is created separately, okay, like this. When you get to the end, slip stitch in the next stitch so it has like a nice finished opening. Okay, then I sewed that onto the tummy using, just a tapestry needle and your ends. Then I took a little bit of that darker color, the dark brown here, and just slip stitched along the stitches here and here to create a little bit of additional depth. So to recap, these lines here are created in double strand using a surface crochet technique, pectoral, center, bottom of rib cage, bottom of tummy, and then this is created separately in a crochet spiral technique, double stranded again, created separately, stitched on after. Okay, the next thing that we are going to address is going to be, here, let's give you a nice close-up of those. See that? surface crochet, created separately in a spiral, attached afterwards. All right, now we're going to move on to the hands. The hands and the feet are created the same way. E.T.'s arms are longer than average arms. So once you're done creating your sleeves, the proper length for your intended wear, you might want to go ahead and add a few extra rounds just so they kind of hang down over the hand a little bit more. That's going to enhance like that creepy long-armed appearance of E.T. So if you'll look here, let's imagine that this is the sleeve opening without any embellishments as created on the pattern, just a normal sleeve opening. First thing what you need to do is create the extension that's going to cover from the wrist to the base of the knuckles. On this one here, what you'll do is you'll fold it in half, the sleeve, nice and in half, and then the part of the sleeve that's going to lay across the top of the hand. You'll join in the right hand side stitch and work across the top for a couple rows. For this one, this is a fit my son who was a 3T, 4T at the time, and I've added 3 rows. Okay, so once you create that little square or rectangle section off of that, from the wrist to the base of the knuckles, you're going to want to start to create the fingers. What I did is right here, where I ended up on that last row of creating the hand extension, I chained 4, and then I slip stitched it into the next stitch across the top of that last row. So then I had like a ring of the 2 stitches and the chains, which I think I did maybe 3. So say a total of 5 stitches. Then I worked in a spiral. So I went maybe 3 rows of the 5 stitches and then just decreased for another 3 rows until I closed it off to a point. So again, how to create those fingers is once, and then when you're done with the finger, tie off the yarn, and then you'll rejoin it in for the next finger. So the first finger encompassed, say, 2 or 3 stitches. Then you're going to join the yarn for the next finger, chain a few, say maybe 3, and then you're going to slip stitch it back to the top of the row of the hand extension. Again, work in a spiral, decrease off. Do that a 3rd time. Join the yarn, tying off the yarn after this one, rejoin the yarn, chain a few more, slip stitch it back. See how it's got like a ring created there? Like that would be the original ring. Then you work in a spiral to create that finger and finish it off. And then the thumb is a little bit shorter, created in the same manner. So you got 3 longs, 1 short. Then, when I was completely done, I joined the yarn here and did 1 final edging around the whole thing just to finish it off nicely. So that is how the hand is created. The foot, it's a little bit difficult to see, but the foot is created in the same way. You would join the yarn on the foot opening, and you're going to want to create an extension to go from about the ankle to the base of the toes. And then from that, in the same way that you did the fingers, chain, rejoin it to the row, work in a spiral until you get to the tip. Then cut the yarn, chain, and work in a spiral till you get to the tip. Toes are 3, and the legs are a little bit shorter. Arms are long and spindly. 3 fingers of the same long length, and then 1 a tad bit shorter. Okay, so that takes care of the hands, the feet, the stomach, and the wrinkles along the tummy. Next thing we will address is the head of E.T. He has a pretty cone-shaped head. I've had a lot of people tell me that he could be like the poo emoji, which I could kind of see. I guess it depends on what kind of generation you come from, if your mind immediately goes to poo emoji or E.T. But when you create the blank canvas onesie pattern, the hood is created from side to side in rows and then seamed up the center. What I would do is create the hood as written, which is going to leave you with 1 flat edge along the top. I would create some rows that decrease into, not necessarily a rectangle, but a little bit rounder. Say if you've got 20 stitches along that top row, I would work maybe decreasing 5 stitches for each row. So have 1 at 20, couple at 15, one at 10, and then when you seam the hood back up to close across the center, you're going to end up with a little bit of an extension like that. Okay, E.T.'s nose. When I did the eyes and the nose, I dropped down to a single strand of yarn and a G hook. I think that the embellishments look better when they're tight, so that is what I would suggest. Drop down to a single strand of yarn and a G hook for these. The nose actually is almost like a pig's nose. Okay, so this was created from the base to the tip. I began by chaining probably about 10 or 12 and slip stitching it to form a ring. Then working in the round, and then as I got to the top, I decreased it, so from about 12 and then do a round of 12, decrease it down to 10, then decrease it down to 8. Then I finished it off. Now these little brown inserts are simply a magic ring with about 5 single crochets worked in the magic ring and then pulled tight. Then I stitched each of those 5 single crochet in the magic rings on either side of the nose. Then I used another strand of brown and I created that extra like detailed or enhanced line up the center. So here's a nice close-up of what that nose looks like. So created after and sewed on after. Okay, for the eyes. E.T.'s eyes are huge. The best advice I can give to creating good costumes is to pay really close attention to orientation of parts, size between the two, and positioning. Notice how the nose is positioned. This is like, say this is the hood opening right here. You're going to want to put the nose directly on the bottom, and the eyes are going to be about twice the height of the nose. These are done in a two-step process. First things first, I started with the white, and I made a magic ring, and then I worked in a spiral. These are probably, I'm going to say 2 inches wide at the white. Okay, so work for 3 rounds in white. We're probably, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 20 to 25 stitches around. Then you're going to tie off the white, join the brown, and then you're going to want to work a couple rounds in the brown. So you're going to have a white center surrounded by brown. Okay, and then I created the blue with a single strand G hook, and that is created in the round, starting with a magic circle. Okay, then after that, same thing with the black, and that started with a magic circle and just maybe 6 stitches in the black. So to assemble, you have a base piece that has white and brown sewed onto the hood, and then you're going to put the blue on top of that, which is created separately, then the black on top of that, also created separately. Then take a white strand of yarn. See these little sparkles? Those really add life to crochet eyes. Those are just stitched on with a needle and a single strand of yarn. Okay, on both eyes, notice the sparkles are in the same spot. Okay, so you got one somewhere around like the 9 o'clock position, horizontal, then another one vertical, and then another one just above it, maybe about the 10 o'clock position. Same on both eyes. So that's how I created the nose and the eyes. These eyebrow ridges here are created in short rows. So I just chained maybe 2 or 3. I'm going to say 3 for this. And these are double-stranded, and these are worked with an end hook. Also in the back loop only and front loop only. I created a piece flat, like a long rectangle, from here to here. Hold it up against the eye so you can have the right size piece. Then what I did is I stuck a little bit of stuffing inside, and I used my an extra piece of yarn and my tapestry needle to sew those above the head, enhancing that ridge. Then I created a side piece because he has another like bump on the side of his eyes. Same manner. Just chain 2 or 3, work in rows back and forth, and then use a separate piece of yarn. You could even stuff it with yarn because sometimes the white polyfill stuffing will show through the stitches. So sometimes I just use scrap yarn inside. So even if it pokes out a little bit, you can't tell. So you have like the eyebrow here, and then you have the side here. Then again, for some added dimension, I took a just like an H hook and some dark brown yarn, and I slip stitched across the underside of the eyebrows to kind of make them look like they're sticking out more. Okay, so that addresses all of the parts that I did on the ET. Now I realize this is definitely not geared to somebody who is just starting to crochet, but rather to somebody who has a bit of experience in it. And for that I apologize, but I wanted to share some information with you because I know that there are a lot of people out there who can freehand. And if you can't, maybe you can look at this as a project to work towards if you would like to improve your skills. So if you have any specific questions or if you need further description on how something is created, please feel free to message me on my Facebook page. That's www.facebook.com/crochetverse. And that's like crochet universe minus the uni. So CROCHETVERSE. I'm going to put a link to my Facebook page and a link to purchase the blank canvas onesie pattern, both in the description of this video. So let's do a real quick recap. You create your entire onesie. You're going to work back loop only and front loop only to create the ridges of his skin. When you are completely done, you are going to surface crochet, add on peck line, center line, bottom of rib cage line, and bottom tummy line. Then separately in a crochet spiral, you'll create his tummy piece and stitch that on, and then slip stitch darker yarn color to enhance. Hold on one second, Jack. That's my baby. My husband's watching some Blaze and the Monster Machines with him, and he clearly has had his fill of me not being by him. The eyes are made in two separate pieces stitched together. The nose is very pig-like in appearance. That's made working in the spiral on a chain joined together to form a ring. We have our eyebrow ridges made in a long rectangle and then enhanced when I stitch them on the sides, and then the hands, which are worked in the same manner as the feet, which I described. I hope that you have found this video somewhat helpful and maybe a little bit informative. Again, I realize that it's very informal and we're not going line by line, but at least I can provide you some information. So if you are confident and you do want to give it a go and get really creative with your work, please go ahead and give it a try. I would love to see your work. I would love to answer your questions or give you further advice if needed. All you got to do is shoot me a message on my Facebook and I will do so. I would love to see your projects. Thank you so very much, and until next time, this is Stephanie from Crochetverse.